Hey, what's going on, y'all? I was going to speak on the Bill Cosby situation. From my understanding, um, it's almost hard to understand it if you didn't follow it, right? And the reason why I say that is because it's too many people that's mad because they feel like he's a rapist, right? And it's some people who just didn't believe the women. Um, so I'm just going to get directly to it and explain why he got out. I did a video about critical thinking a little while ago and saying that two things can be right at the same time, right? I'm not saying he's a rapist, but he could be a rapist and the system could have locked him up unjust, which that could have happened. So I'm explaining why he got out, why I believe he should have been out too. Not because he's not guilty, but because they railroaded him, right? Sometimes a person can say, I know you're guilty, but I can't prove it, so they'll come up with something. Almost like the O.J. Simpson case. I'm not saying he was guilty, but they really felt he was guilty, but they couldn't prove it, so they planted some evidence, which messed up the whole case, right? So this is almost like the same thing. It's similar. So it's a little weird because every time I talk to somebody, I'm like, he raped all these women. He did this and did that. I said, that's not necessarily true. We see all the women on the news or whatever. I said, yeah, but none of them women pressed charges. Them was just women that came to testify on his character. Like, this is what he did to me. This is what he did to me. None of them pressed charges. Not saying they're not telling the truth, but only one woman pressed charges against him, and even she was kind of uncredible because she admitted to having a relationship with Bill Cosby. And then she said later on that he raped her. No, she didn't even say rape. See, I didn't heard so many scenarios. Now I'm using the word rape because it's easy if you see it on the news. She said that Bill Cosby drugged her and played with her breasts. You can look it up. It's, I think he got charged with sexual assault. But everybody else is like, he went to jail for rape and this. And so this is why some people are so kind of like thrown off. Like, how could he do all these rapes and everything and get out of jail? Because that's not what he was in jail for. Yes, they can put it on the news and say he raped all these women, but that wasn't even proven. It was just a lot of people... and some of these women probably did get taken advantage of and raped by Bill Cosby, but that's not what he was in court for. So that was with the misunderstanding. Because if he's in court with this woman, and then you see all these women, like 50 women, 60 women, 70 women, which was kind of misleading because it made you think that's what he was in court for raping people, which that wasn't true. If you see that over and over, and some people don't go looking, Googling, and nothing. Even, so you would have to say, what was Bill, if you Google it, you would have to say, what was Bill Cosby charged for? And then it tell you sexual assault. And then it tell you the woman's name, you know. It might even go into detail telling you that she said he drugged her just to play with her breasts. Sounds kind of weird. I'm not saying it didn't happen. But for everybody, and then they had these character witnesses come in and say, he raped me, which was kind of unfair because that's not what he was on trial for. He wasn't on trial for rape. But when you got all these women to come in and say he drugged me and he raped me, that's the only thing people can think about is he's a rapist. He's a serial rapist, which I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying when you in court, say I'm in court for stealing someone's car. Somebody said I stole their car. And it's only one person charging me, and then they bring all these other people and was like, yeah, when we was young, he stole from me too. 30 years ago, he stole from me. 30 years ago, he stole my cousin's car. But none of them pressed charges, so you really can't prove it. Nothing can be proved. And some of these people might be telling the truth, but and then Some of the people they found out that was lying, they didn't talk about that much. They talked about a little bit on the news, and then they kept on going. Like, so some of these women could have been telling the truth, but some of them was proven to be liars, right? So I'm not here to say whether he was guilty or whether he was innocent, because I pretty much, it'd be easy for me to attack him because it was some things that I don't like about him. But I don't want to mix my feelings or how I feel about him with whether I feel that he's guilty or not. And a lot of people do that. So it was proven that he had a relationship with her. So that's why they couldn't really arrest him for the rape, because they was like, she admitted that she had a sexual relationship with him. So this is where they tangled him up. They couldn't prove none of this stuff, right? They couldn't prove none of it. So they told him, well, the prosecutor had made a deal with O.J. Simpson's lawyer, and then he made a deal. He talked to her lawyer. She, at that point, I think she just wanted the money because she knew they couldn't prove nothing, right? Which most people would say, if I can't prove it, I can't let them get away with it. That don't mean she was lying. She just couldn't prove it, right? So she wanted the money. And most people plead out, even in criminal cases, they plead out. But this wasn't even a criminal case no more, because now they figured out they couldn't get him. They couldn't prove nothing she said was true. Yes, they put all those other women on TV, but none of them were pressing charges. Everybody thought, like, all these women, but none of them pressed charges. And then I can care less. They say, well, the statute was over. Yeah, 30 years later, 20 years later. But the thing is, whether he was guilty or not, none of the women ever pressed charges. So you can't convict him for something that was never even brought to court. These women came on behalf of the lady that said he played with her breasts, which was weird because they was saying he was a rapist, and she was charging him for playing with her breasts because she already admitted that they had a sexual relationship. So I don't think she could have got away with the rape part. So everybody's mind was like, he's a rapist, because if you put it on TV enough, that's what we all was thinking, right? So the prosecutor made a deal with the two attorneys. The prosecutor said, if you just tell us what happened with this lady, we won't try to go further with any criminal charges, which they couldn't prove it anyway, right? So he goes in there and he admits that he would buy drugs to give to her. This is allegedly she was a user. She was a drug addict, which that's probably true. I'm gonna say allegedly because I don't know her or nothing. And he would buy drugs because that was her fun of choice, drugs. It was like he was tricking. Basically, he was tricking. And when he admitted that he would give her drugs, she never said she was drugged. All the other women said they was drugged. She alluded that he drugged her. She did say he drugged her. This was after the fact, after they'd already been kicking it and everything, and their relationship was over, which was kind of weird. You had a relationship with the guy, then you wait until y'all no longer was kicking it anymore. Then you sue him, said he raped you. But you didn't say he raped you the other times that y'all had sex, but he raped you another time after y'all stopped having. That's a little weird, so I don't like to debate stuff like that because it's just weird anyway. But so the prosecutor makes the deal that if OJ, here I go, I'm mixing the two, that if Bill Cosby tell exactly what happened in that relationship, that they won't prosecute him and they'll just she'll take the money, everything will be good. Bill Cosby gets up there, yes, I did bring drugs to the party. She did use drugs. This is her drug of choice. And I guess everybody was kind of getting a little mixed up. Now we know, yeah, he probably did drugs too. I'm not saying, but because that part didn't really come out. If he was doing the drugs too or whatever, he would get drugs for women. And so to understand, it was pre-lubes, right? And pre-lubes is like X, the modern day X pills, but it was pre-lubes back then. It probably was the same thing. They had a different name for it. And from the understanding, he wanted women to be on these drugs because it magnified what they was thinking. And if I can explain, example, I've never used X or any type of drugs like that. But someone told me a long time ago that X was like if you was a jack boy and you was in the mind of robbing people and you took some X, you probably would rob people all night because it magnified how you was feeling. If you was in a sexual mood and you took some X, it would magnify and you wanting to have sex all night. So I'm sure that's why it was preludes was the drug of his choice. If the women was in a sexual mood and they took preludes, they would want to have sex all night, right? A lot of people was making it seem like it was Mickey's, like he was putting stuff in people's drinks and then they pass out and wake out, didn't know what was up. It was preludes, and preludes was just like X pills. So a lot of people don't know that, so they automatically just run with the thing. He was drugging women, raping them. He probably did, but on this scenario with this woman, this is not what happened. So I don't want to make it seem like, oh, he wasn't raping nobody, or he didn't drug nobody. We're not saying that didn't happen. We're saying in this situation, this is not what happened, right? In this situation, it was somebody he was having sex with. Yes, he was cheating on his wife. That's another story, so let's not debate that. He was having sex with this woman. He was providing her with drugs. Bill Cosby got on stand, and he admitted that. And the media grabbed it and said, proof, he was drugging women. Bill Cosby said it out of his own mouth. Okay, whether y'all want to take it that way or not, but okay, this was the facts. So he get up there and tell him, that, yeah, I used to bring drugs and she was using it, blah, blah, blah. So he go up there and the prosecutor said, okay, they give her the money, case closed. So once you make a deal with the prosecutors, like guys make plea deals all the time if they don't want to, if they facing 30 years and the prosecutors say, listen, we'll give you 10 years if you make this plea deal. Once they do that, they're not, by law, they're not allowed to go back after you done already did, taking your 10 years and then they come back. We bring them back to court. We try to make them give them the 30 years. That's against the law. So this is the situation with Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby say, okay, I'll let y'all know what happened between me and her, and y'all don't prosecute me. And I'll give her the money that she's asking for. So that's what happened. She took the money. She went about her business. Now, this is what they did to switcheroo on them. Years later, probably the money's gone or whatever, they try to bring it back to court. That's against the law. So they didn't try to bring it back to court. They did bring it back to court. You can't, after you give a person a plea deal and then they serve their sentence or they pay out the fine, whatever they have to do, you can't bring it back and say, now we want you to do something else. This is where the law messed up at, right? It's kind of arrogant because they got away with it for a minute. And then they basically, a different prosecutor come in. So this is where the switcheroo came up. And he said, I never made a deal like that with you. I don't know what you're talking about. We gonna prosecute. Then they took him to court. And then they brought all these women that didn't have nothing to do with the court case. That was a little weird because it made it seem like all these women pressed charges on them. They had about 50, 60 women. Like, they said 30 years ago. So the thing is, you couldn't prove he didn't do it and you couldn't prove he did it. But if a jury hears that over and over, just like the public, most of the people thought he was in jail for rape. Just like the public, if you hear a person over and over say, he raped me, he drugged me, he raped me, he drugged me, it becomes reality. The jurors was like, he's guilty. He raped these women. All these women saying he raped them. Not to say that didn't happen. We don't know why all of a sudden 30 years later and all that, and these women come and say, we don't know. But the thing is, now they convict him and they put him in jail. When they did that, everybody was like, it's justice. But then the same justice system come back and say, wait a minute. Y'all made this deal with him. Told him if he talked to y'all and paid this woman that's money, Y'all don't prosecute. And then when he does that, y'all come back with a different prosecutor and say, we didn't say that. So what was the purpose of him giving her the money if y'all didn't make a deal? So the judge said, nah, he ain't supposed to be in jail. That's against the law. They let him out. Then they say, this the same people that say they believe in the system. Let the system go through. So some people only believe in justice when it goes their way. You feel what I'm saying? But when it doesn't go their way, the system is messed up. Well, the system is messed up. That's why the system, what happened anyway. They couldn't get him because they didn't have enough proof. So they made a deal with him. And then after they did the deal, they come back and say, well, remember you said this? You can't do that when you make a deal with someone. So this is why they let him out. A lot of people don't understand, like, oh, they let him out because he got money. That's partially true. He had money to pay for the lawyers to fight for him. A lot of guys don't have that money, even when they get put in jail wrongfully, and they stay in there. Some guys stay in there. So yes, it was his money that got him out, but it was the crooked system that also got him out. That doesn't mean he's innocent. It's just that they didn't have enough evidence to prove he was guilty. So they made a deal with him. That's why they're not allowed to lock him up. Now, he's going to sue. I'm sure he's going to sue because you can't make a deal with somebody. And then after the deal is done and she gets her money and she goes about her business. Now, some people you can prosecute and you can still sue them. They made a deal that if he talked to them and give the money, case closed. That's the deal they made. So this is why he's out. If a lot of people's confused or whatever, it doesn't mean he's innocent. It doesn't mean he's guilty. A lot of people think he's guilty. It really doesn't matter. And like I said, I have issues with him, but it really doesn't have. I don't want to discuss my issues with him because then it muddies up the water or just trying to get to what really happened. And when we start giving our personal opinions on him, like, well, I think he did it because he did this. In Hollywood, it's like this. And we're just going off of our opinions and how we feel. We're not going off of the facts of the case or whatever. It wasn't 50 women. It wasn't 60 women. It wasn't 70 women. It wasn't 100 women. It was one woman that took him to court. And that woman said he drugged her and played with her chest. So it wasn't rape involved. We're not saying he's not a rapist. But you can't call him a rapist off of this case. Maybe he was a rapist. But if we want to go off of what was in front of us, not the women who said he did all this because they never pressed charges. The woman who pressed charges was a woman that he was dealing with in a sexual relationship. She said once they stopped dealing around, she said he sexually assaulted her. That was once they wasn't dealing with no more. So you can be the judge. And I hope y'all understand what I was saying. I'm just talking a million miles per hour. I'm not taking sides because I know how people feel like if you believe he should be out of jail, you must be for men abusing women or whatever. No, he should be out of jail because they did a plea deal with him and it's against the law. After you make the deal and you do whatever they tell you to do, and then they come back and change the rules, that's against the law. This is why he's out of jail. Not because he's innocent, but because they did a plea deal with him. And if y'all agree that they should be able to lock him up and keep him up, then they'll keep doing that to everybody, whether you're innocent or... So you can't be okay with that. Because they'll make deals with people all the time, and once you go to jail, they say... oh, he did his 10 years, we want him to do some more time. Yeah, man, they kind of give you parole and all that and wait for you to mess up and then give you more time anyway, but that's another thing. So, all right, y'all. It's Meaty Montana. I eat knowledge for breakfast. Look in the link. Check out the merchandise. Support. Take it easy.